They don't do that anymore. We used to even go to Mass on First Fridays, you know. We usually keep First Fridays. And we'd go to Mass, we'd walk there around 5 o'clock in the morning. They had an early Mass for the people, especially that worked out in the sawmill, Prestige sawmill or something out there. We had two sawmills then in town. One was around where Walmart is now, roughly, in First Street over there. And then we had the new one over here. And they had whistles that went off at 6 o'clock in the morning. You could hear them all over town. And I guess they don't have those whistles anymore. They were gone.
You were talking about church. I have seen like hymn books or school song books that they used for like chapel in the morning. When you were here, did you have to go to chapel every morning?
I'm not sure if we had it every day or Monday, Wednesday, Friday or something, but it was quite effective. We went in there, we sang our opening hymn, then Dr. Quimby, where the superintendent would read out of the Bible some passage, and then we had a little short hymn, and then we had the closing hymn, and that was pretty regular. And I hate to say it, but I think that when they stopped having chapel services, something came over the school and made it different.
Yeah. That changes things.
He was all with us back then. It was interdenominational, which is fine. That's what, no problem there. But I think that people, and that included the faculty, they also went. Everybody sang with a great deal of glee, and the readings were interesting. And then sometimes, of course, he would read something interesting out of the Reader's Digest. You know, it was an interesting article. So it was not only the chapel services, but it was kind of a time when the superintendent passed any news around the campus, or read some article that was of interest to everybody.
But the superintendent was the one who conducted the meeting.
Well,
usually.
I don't remember who did it. I think that it may have been the principal, Mr. Heblin, in Mr. Smallstein. But when Dr. Quimby came, he used to do most of the reading, although occasionally Mr. Newman would when Dr. Quimby wasn't around. And of course, Mr. Ditzler would play that great organ we had back then.
Very well, I hear. He played it very well, I hear.
Very well. Well, I think he was a graduate from a conservatory in Philadelphia. I'm not sure. Mr. Ditzler. Yeah. And before then, Mrs. Small, the wife of the superintendent Small, used to play the organ. And she was very good too. She was also the music teacher. Very good. I remember taking piano with her, and I thought she was quite exceptional.
How much time was there between the time you were a student and when you came back to teach?
When I graduated, I had been doing a lot of some cabinet work here at school for the teachers. And one day I went to visit the lady that used to work in the laundry, Mrs. Roman. She's the one that gave us, we used to like to go at noon or their afternoon because she'd give us tortillas. Anyway, I remember one time I went to visit her. This was a long time after. We appreciated her because she was so kind. And she had a student over here also, Felisa. Anyway, I went to her house and I said, you know, these shelves look familiar or something. And she said, they should. You made them for me. Yeah, anyway, I used to do a lot of cabinet work. So when I graduated, I ran a cabinet shop up in Morrow for about a year. I had a very good reputation up there. And gosh, I used to put in long hours. Later on, I remember I was making cabinets for the home economics class at the Morrow Public School. I used to be riding home on the bike. It was about 2 miles. And that would be around 2 o'clock in the morning, because I'd go in around 5 after school, and then I'd work in the evening. So I'd come. Well, I remember that the people from the rehabilitation department, the Commission for the Blind now, it was division. The Division of Services for the Blind, the rehab was under the school at that time. They not only had the faculty here, they were in charge of the shop downtown, the one in Albuquerque. They used to call that Division of Services for the Blind then. Anyway, he went over there to my house. They were keeping up with me, a close eye, and he knew I could do pretty good. And he says, how come when we asked you if you wanted to, because I told him, someday I'll gather my money, maybe it'll be 10 years. When I have enough money to go to college, I'm going to go put myself through college. And he says, well, how come when we asked you when you graduated, if you wanted to go to college, you said no? Well, my reason was I didn't have the money. They didn't tell me they would fund me. They just said, you want to go to college? I said, no. So anyway, after that, so I ran the cabinet shop a year or two. I was on the job training in Albuquerque for one winter, but they didn't teach me anything there about cabinet work. Well, I did get the concept of mass production, which I couldn't really mass produce myself. I was an individual, but it was all right, I guess. But as far as teaching me cabinet work, they didn't teach me anything. Well, when I told him about going to college, they said, well, put you in Highlands. So they did. I went to Highlands for 4 years there. I had a job there at Highlands. We had to work back then for our spending money and whatnot money. And then I got a job up at El Rito. It was a Northern New Mexico college. I had a class in college teaching drafting. Anyway, I also taught industrial arts and crafts there 9 years, and then I came here in '65. I was here 12 years, and then I took a job with a Commission for the Blind.
So it was about 14 years then. So there was like 14 or 15 years between the time you
1950 to
graduated?
1965, 15
Okay.
years before I came back here. So there was a little change in those years. And then there's been further changes since all the change of, I was under Mr. Small, who was, I think, the third superintendent. Dr. Pratt, and I forgot the name of the first one.
Gil.
Anyway, and I was a student under Dr. Quimby. Then I worked under Sneed, superintendent, and I worked under, who was the other one after Sneed? And Kuntz was superintendent for a while there. And then Jerry Watkins, and the other guy, what was his name? The guy built the swimming pool.
Edwards?
Edward, right. I was under them. So I got a taste of quite a few philosophies there. And actually, let's see, we've had 2 superintendents since Jerry Watkins, right?
We're on our third one.
Now, and the guy before, what was his name?
Walters was right after.
Walters and I think both attended. I went, before I came here, I went and spent a summer in industrial arts education in Oswego, New York. And I think that's where I met Walters. I think he was there.
Long before he came here.
Oh, yes.
I knew that he was a shop teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
He must have been, because he was there with me in industrial arts in Oswego, New York.
Yeah.
We were together. Well, not together, but we both attended that workshop. Anyway, he knew me. I didn't get to know him too well, but we did work together there. So in a way, I have been a disciple of or a teacher under most of the superintendents that this school has had.
That's cool. That is neat.
Or at least how many? 4, not under 4, because I wasn't under Brett for the first one, nor under this lady were under. So, but the others, so I've been under subject to or working with them, half of the superintendents that the school has ever had. And that's about it. Did they do away with their tile, Spanish tile over here? That's not tile, is it?
No. This building, when they redid this, what was the dining room and the auditorium, they did not put the tile roofs back on.
Why?
And I don't know why. But the old natatorium still has a tile roof.
The old
gym,
what?
the old natatorium, the old swimming pool,
Oh, yeah.
it still has a tile roof.
And this one here has some, or?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
they took the tile off where the air conditioners run over. But
Now-
the education building does.
There for a while, Mr. Steed, for Christmas, used to put luminarios all
man.
around the campus.
Yeah.
And the trouble with that was that when they got up there to put them up there,
They break the
they
tiles.
break a lot of tiles.
Yeah.
So they had a little problem with that later on.
Yeah, a lot of the
It
roofs
was
are
an
still tile.
interesting attempt. It just wasn't practical
Yeah.
the way they did it.
We still put luminarias on the sidewalks,
Yeah.
but we don't
Then
put
they
them
were
on the
putting
buildings.
them around the edge of the buildings.
Like they should be.
Yeah. Speaking of the edge, you know, Joe was telling me we had crystal sets then, you know, for radio. That's about the most we had. No, there were a few kids that could afford a radio. There weren't too many radios around, 1 or 2 maybe in the dorm over there. But Joe had a crystal set, and he was on top of the junior building, which was higher than this, I think, putting his antenna up there. And he started sliding down, he says, you know.
These are tile roof?
It was a tile roof, yeah, on that building. Started sliding down, and he couldn't control himself. So he said he got almost to the edge, and he was about ready, because underneath they were getting ready, I guess, for supper, and Mr. Newman was down there. He says, I was about ready to holler to him, get out of the way, I'm coming down. But he finally got a hold and worked himself up again. I remember being up there, not too much, but I remember being up on that roof. But he got up there to put his antenna, and he had a very good crystal set. He said he could get all kinds of stations. And they separated real good.
Mr. Maes, I do thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking the time to do this for me.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure.
Wonderful.
I don't know. We wonder what the next 100 years has in store for this school. I hope it doesn't fade into the public schools completely, because you need a school like this. It could serve different purposes, you know, such as just bringing kids here primarily to emphasize mobility. You say, why can't they emphasize you can't have enough mobility instructors for the whole state. It wouldn't be impossible, but it's not very practical. It's better if you have a place of concentration. They come here and take mobility. They could take Braille. Of course, they can learn Braille anywhere, but here they should be able to concentrate. We used to I learned Braille in the kindergarten before I went into the first grade. My first year was probably mostly becoming a social creature. So I didn't speak English then. Very few words that I had. I knew my name and address in English, you know. I could say that, but my first year was primarily learning to speak English and becoming a social creature. Second year in kindergarten, I learned Braille and reading. Then, of course, the third year we started in the first grade. So that meant I spent 14 years in this school. Not very smart, I guess.